Dormer, will you lead us?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Got back in grade school.
A roll call, please.
President Mateusz,
Present.
Commissioner Chang Crawley,
Present.
Commissioner Slater Carter,
Present.
Commissioner Falmouth.
Present.
Looking around, I don't see any members of the public for public comment. Do we have any commissioner comments? Or
I do. I just want to make a quick comment. I've been going to the LAFCO meetings, and so we have one today. And I just wanted to let everyone know that I've been selected to be on the budget committee of LAFCO, which means that we're also, deciding on what MSRs are coming up in the next year or so, well, the next few years. So I just wanted to give that update, and we're still just working on, going through Broadmoor Police and the East Palo Alto Sanitary District issues. But in general, I'll just know that I've been going to these meetings and representing special districts as best as I can.
Comrade, anything?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Commissioner Slater Carter?
Nothing.
All right, moving on to activity reports. Would the general manager like to say anything or summarize anything outside of his report?
I spent majority of Saturday down at the harbor, Pillar Point Harbor, and the atmosphere of the harbor is alive. And there's a buzz about going out on the pier. The restaurants are open. There was all the chairs were full. There's lines out the door. Ocean cider every chair was taken. There was live music. It was just a great atmosphere, and the harbor hasn't looked better in decades with landscaping and cleanliness. So extremely proud of the harbor and the hard work that Chris and the crew down there are doing. So beyond that, nothing else to report.
Absolutely tremendous to hear. Thank you.
Yes.
Let me add a comment to that, and that's something I have seen at shopping malls over the last several decades, is they have moved from a place to shop to a place for entertainment. And I'm glad the Harbor District is moving in that same direction. I think it's important.
Mr. Moran, anything to add to your operations report?
No, everything is going quite smoothly. Staff, I'd like to commend staff at both Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point Marina for doing a great job on recovering from these historic storms that we've had again this year. These atmospheric rivers, they've got both facilities back up and running nearly 100%. Just did an excellent job all through the storms, walking the docks and making sure that all the boats are secure. We did lose one sailing vessel at Pillar Point Harbor, which we're getting bids now to have raised and removed. Regretfully, the owner has abandoned the vessel. And 91% occupied, and we always stay at over 90% occupied at Pillar Point Harbor, and then remaining at 75 to 80% at Oyster Point Marina. Staff are doing a wonderful job.
Love to hear those revenue stories. Thank you. Van Off, anything to add to your administration and finance report?
Thank you, President Mateusz. Good morning, Commissioners. In that same vein, our staff is continuing to work and accumulate the costs to get reimbursement from DBW SAVE grant. This year, there was 16 boats that were turned into this program that the operations department at Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point Marina doing a great job getting rid of some of these old derelict boats, and our staff is continuing to support them on the paperwork aspect of that. And we are going to be upgrading our Wi-Fi services at both Oyster Point Marina and Pillar Point Harbor, continuing to implement automated processes in our ERP system, and continuing to organize the district records, particularly in electronic formats. Thank you.
That's tremendous to hear.
Yes.
Yeah, Ken Yip, who deserves a lot of the credit for every year, making getting the applications together for our SAFE grants. And as Julie just said, he helps us process all of the documents required for reimbursement. And it's a significant amount of money, over $150,000 was the last grant. And we ended up using pretty much all of it, regretfully, with abandoned vessels.
Sad to say. There's nothing more on the activity reports. Is there a motion to accept the consent calendar as
So-
written?
So moved.
Second.
Right, there's been a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda on item F. We have a roll call on that, please.
President Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Chang Corrali,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter,
Yes.
Mr. Donrat.
Aye. Item G, financial year 2022-2023 audited statements and independent auditors report. Ms. Van Hoff, I believe that this is your item.
Thank you, President Mathush. First of all, I'd like to thank our accounting manager and his staff for doing a fantastic job putting together this audit with no issues, with using a new firm. We have Nigro and they're on camera right now, so I'll be handing it off to them. But it's a new firm and a new ERP system. Paul, would you like to introduce yourself and move forward with your presentation?
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Paul Kmark. I'm the.
Oh, you're on mute.
We can't hear you.
Oh,
Yeah.
can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Sorry.
We
Can you
need
hear me now?
volume up, maybe.
Can't hear you yet, Ball.
Oh, let me try.
I don't
Hear me
know.
now?
Test, Paul? No, we still can't hear you.
Ken?
Oh, here comes.
They have support.
I'm able to hear you, Paul.
Boomer, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't know if they can hear me.
So you can hear
I
him,
can
but we
hear you.
can't?
Yeah, can you guys?
Yeah, I kind of heard some.
Yes, the public can hear him.
Boomer, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
And you hear Boom? Can everybody else hear
Can,
Boomer?
Maybe I can turn my computer on.
We'll create a
Yeah.
back feed area.
Maybe, yeah.
Boomer, can you?
I hear him
Yeah,
now.
Is that too much of an echo?
That's you.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Just
There,
It's
barely.
coming through Julie's computer and I think there's an echo out in the public.
See if I can leave.
Is it possible to phone in? Showing it's on.
There is an echo, but it's not bad, they say.
We appear to have lost Paul's, oh, there's Paul's connection again.
All right, did that help? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but it seems like they can't.
Oh, can you go check it?
Testing, testing, testing.
See mute on the, there it is.
Testing, can you hear me now?
Muted now.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Jim's got it.
Oh.
Can you bring me in now? No?
We're working diligently on our end. We just can't get you to come in to the room with us.
Can I just add something then really quickly while we're trying to get him?
Just speak up.
Yeah, so, the audit was presented at Finance Committee meeting to, during that time. And I have to say, it was a very good audit. I was, very proud of the outcome and, the fact that it was a new firm, that, gave a clean audit. And I just want to thank Julie and her team for working hard to make sure that we have clean audits and, that everything is, above board. And, I look forward to working
Or
with
say something.
Can you hear me now?
Nigro as we move forward until we have to get another
Can you hear me
auditor
now?
per state law.
Can you hear me now?
Thanks, Julie.
Paul, I can hear you. I'm not sure if anyone else can.
It's one of those things where if we shut everything down and restart it. might work.
When in doubt.
Pardon me?
This morning.
Michelle says she can hear him.
Yeah, I
she's not
think the
coming through in
audience
our
can
room.
hear me, but not
That's
the
just not
board.
our room. Is the speaker plugged?
Yep.
Is it turned on?
An indicator for it, so I have no idea.
Boomer, you want to try to say something? Make sure that,
Oh.
we're
Hi, can you all hear me?
Oh, we can't hear
not
him.
getting you either.
Or something on that sound.
Can you hear me?
No, that's through my computer.
Whoa.
Let me try it through mine. Turn yours off, Melanie. How about now? Not any better.
Could he just dial in? He can't dial into the Zoom? A lot of times says the dial-in numbers.
There's always a dial-in number on the Zoom.
Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear anything?
There's no meeting ID.
Question, right? What would they dial into for us to hear?
Is a sound bar on up top?
Seems like there should be a light or
Because
something.
there's no light or anything on it.
Hi, Paul, can you hear
Call
me?
your,
This is
your
Boomer.
phone and just.
I can hear you,
turn
Boomer.
The volume on your phone.
If he
calls in.
Are you able to dial in? I can,
Let me see.
sorry about that. I'm not sure what's going on. Let me,
I don't know if I don't know. I'd have to dial into the phone number, but if I would have to, I'd have to come through
Send me
on
an email on this meeting.
on that device that's on the
Need
desk
lip
right there.
reading training, Karen.
No. Just trying to sign on to the meeting.
Can we skip over element and let them try to work on it while we just do other business as we go along, or
Yes. Soundbar. Then it's not gonna help because it's still gonna go.
Working on it, we can
You just have to.
do it
Someone
up
has to-
down.
That's an excellent idea. Let's, let somebody work on that and we'll have our item 1 fiscal year audited financial statement report next. Let's, work on item number 2, request for rent relief Pelagic Hospitality Group. General Manager Pruitt, this is your item.
The audit.
For now, I mean,
Now, come back at the end and they can get it fixed.
Commissioners, President Matoush, the Pelagic Hospitality Group approached me and was requesting rent relief for the months of December, January, and February. December 23, January 24, and February 24. And normally under the lease, they are required to pay a base rent. And then if their percentage rent based on sales is above the base rent, then they would pay the percentage rent on top of the base rent. In this situation, they're asking just to pay the base rent based on their business because they're still trying to build out parcels 2 and 3. And they're unable to bring in income from those 2 parcels while they're putting money into the building. And asked for the reduction to percentage only based on the fact of they're taking that money and putting it back in the building. If we did that, we would accept, instead of the total month or total base rent, we'd be accepting $6,600 for December. That's based on the 5%.
Yes.
$7,350 for January, $10,000 for February, and then March would be the full $12,500 a month as required by the lease and the base rent. My recommendation is that the board approve the rent relief in an amount not to exceed the $15,000 to permit Pelagic Hospitality Group to pay $6,600 for December 2023, $7,350 for January 2024, $10,000 for February 20 or January 2024, $10,000 for February 2024, and $12,500 beginning in March 2024.
so the amount that is here is the relief amount, right?
Yes.
So what would the total be for the non-relief amount?
$12,500.
That's
Something.
That's what I, okay, I get that. That's what I saw for March. I just wanted to make sure that was,
In January 1st, 2024, it goes up to $14,000.
which they would pay in March at 12,500 would still be,
It'll be below the $14,000, which the lease requires $14,000 a month starting January 1st, 2024.
in 2023, what was it?
2023, November 23 through December 31st, 23, the base rent was $9,449.
9,449 base rent. And we're still getting a percentage of what they sell, correct?
That's what they're asking, is just to pay the percentage rent instead of the base rent for those months.
Right, so this is the percentage,
Yes.
right?
We're
Um,
safe.
So I understand that, and I understand the quandary that they're in, and so, and I'm inclined to do
Helps.
what you're saying, Jim, but I also I want everyone to understand that this is not like the normal thing that we're doing, because we have had to deal with the permits and the fees also that, you know, we've given some relief to, but then we haven't in some circumstances. So, but I mean, this is, I'll just say this, I'm balancing all of this with the fact that there are so many people coming to the harbor, also because of the opening of the restaurants. I mean, the parking lot is full. So I think on balance, we're gonna be able to, you know, get that back, but I don't want this to always be the rule that we make these exceptions. And it's not just for them, for anyone. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, There's special circumstances with the Pelagic Restaurant.
I know, that's why,
With all the
yeah.
permitting that's been delayed through the county.
And
It's
what,
not on, they're not delayed because of lack of effort on their part.
I know that, but basically we're subsidizing the county.
Well, part of the lack of effort on their part though was the
That's
fish
what-
market. If they had opened the fish market, initially they had mentioned before they came in that that would be the first thing that was ever opened. If they had done that, there would have been a massive cash flow.
Well, we
to
don't know that.
Crab season.
Maybe,
There might have been, yes.
there may have
And the
been
crab pot
likely,
running.
but I mean, but at the end of the day, the county permitting stalls are costing the Harbor District money.
Right,
We're
we're-
basically subsidizing the county.
No, I don't think we're subsidizing the
Yeah,
county.
we're paying for what their lack of efficiency right now.
No, they're taking our money.
Okay, they're that, okay, that. Basically, we're paying for their lack of efficiency.
Yes. And apparently, I've been talking to contractors recently, it's worse than ever.
Yeah.
And the money they're saving is the $14,000 is actually being reinvested into the building.
Yeah, that, I mean, I see all of that. That's why I'm not, the bigger, so I'm actually will support your recommendation. That's not the issue. The issue goes back to the lack of understanding and the need on our part to help people understand that the processes are slow, whether it's dredging or even this, that a private business on a public facility or in a public building can't even get the permits, and it's costing us money. That's what I'm saying. And
Way to get reimbursement back from the
well,
county
I
for
was
those
just gonna
delays.
ask that.
Okay.
How can we be reimbursed by the county? I mean, literally, and I get that there's a squeeze maybe in terms of staffing. I don't know what they're doing, in other words, but all I know is that it's costing us money and it's hurting the Harbor District's revenue stream, right? And it's hurting them, the business, the tenant, because they can't finish what they plan to do, to bring in money, not only to the harbor, but for them to have a sustainable and successful business. So what can we do?
Well, I think that's off the issue. I think the issue before us here on
That's
our
true.
agenda is the rent relief. And I think we'll come back to that
Well, maybe-
issue. If there's a way to pursue additional reimbursement through the county, that would be a different agendized issue or a suggestion from our legal counsel. But at the present time, what we have is a request for rent relief for
Okay.
Atlantic Hospitality Group. General manager has
Yeah, something.
offered a report. Do we have commissioner comments?
I have a comment to Commissioner Corrali's question. Bring it up at LAFCO, please.
Well, I actually think we should agendize this.
Just emailed
that
him
we
and I said, I believe we
report from
fixed this out.
staff as to the
That-
full extent of what it is that we're not getting.
Thank you.
Good idea, because we can then add it to the report about the dredging delays and all the
The
various,
thing you pointed out.
yeah, and all the
yeah.
various commissions who have say over us and
Or other
our
agencies.
progress, yeah.
So let's do that before we bring it up to LAFCO at this point.
I support this. I'm sure that successful venture and over the time, it will be, we will receive the rewards in other ways from the increased traffic at the harbor. So
You want to make
I'm more than happy to make a motion to approve the right wording?
rent relief?
The
The
recommendation.
rent relief for the pelagic hospitality group.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any more comments? Not, we'll have a roll call.
Wait, so I do want to say that I want this on a future agenda, and I know we're not there yet, but I'm just reminding Jim that when we get there, I would like to have this put on the future agenda.
Yep.
Roll call.
Commissioner Jane Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter.
Yes.
Mr. Donrat,
Yes.
President Mathush.
Aye. All right, first look at our fiscal year 2024-2025 operating budget and capital improvement projects. Ms.
Do
Van,
we have the
Sound. working?
sound?
The auditor,
okay. Go
I'd like
back,
to go to John first.
That makes sense. This
go
is.
back to item 1, item G1.
Good morning,
Paul.
everyone. Can you hear me?
Oh, hey, welcome back, or welcome initially.
Great, thank you. I'm Paul Kmart, the Audit Services Partner with Nigro and Nigro. And I'm here today to share you the results of the fiscal year June 30th, 2023 audit. We've put together a presentation for you. If I may share my screen so I could walk through it. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Can they see the screen?
Correct.
All right. All right. Let me go to the presentation. So the scope of work that we're here is to perform an audit test work of the entity's audited financial statements report. We report on the entity's internal control over financial reporting and on compliance with accordance with government account auditing standards. Our responsibility. Yes? I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'm sorry.
You're loud and clear here.
Loud and clear. Okay. Our responsibility in accordance with professional standards is to form and express an opinion about whether the annual financial statements results that have been prepared by management are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with accounting practices generally accepted in the United States of America. Our responsibility is to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance, not absolute, about whether the annual financial statements are free of material misstatements. And we are to consider the entity's internal controls and segregation of duties over accounting procedures and financial reporting as we perform our audit test work. Such considerations are solely for the purpose of determining our audit procedures and not to provide any assurance concerning such internal controls. We're not giving you an opinion on internal controls. We're giving you an opinion on the fair balance of the financial statements. The audit results, we've presented an unmodified opinion that has been issued to the annual financial statements. It's a clean opinion. We believe the information is materially correct. The annual financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. The adopted significant accounting policies have been consistently applied throughout the financial statements. Estimates are considered reasonable for depreciation, pension, OPEB expenses, as well as lease revenues and expenditures. And required disclosures have been properly reflected in the annual financial statements. AUC 265, communications with internal control matters identified in the audit. No material issues arose to be reported to the governing board and management during our audit test work. And any minor issues that we may have come across were discussed orally and corrected by management at that time. But how do we, looking at the audit overall, how do we make you better? What are you receiving as part of the audit? Well, we believe that as we conduct the audit, any best practice solutions, they're being conveyed to management during that audit process. And that's what we call the audit return on investment receiving. So, any questions? All right, moving forward, we've prepared what we call a dashboard overall between the 2 years, between June 30th, 2023 and 2022, and what has changed between the two periods there. So looking over this, we look at overall revenues, very consistent between the two fiscal periods. We're seeing that for 2023 revenues 310,046 for operating revenues. Non-operating revenues, we've seen an increase of 7.5% for property taxes. Investment earnings, we'll talk about that in a bit. Grants and reimbursements coming in very consistent, as well as other non-operating revenues during the period there. We had some federal capital grants and state capital grants. So overall, looking at this, we're at total revenues 15.1 million, just 14.6 in the prior year. So an increase of about 568,912 between the two fiscal periods there. When we look at operating expenditures, the big jump here in operating expenditures is in the prior year, there was a large credit for OPEB. This year, there was a large expenditure for pension expense, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But other than that, very consistent overall. Facilities and maintenance, professional legal services, materials and services, vessel destruction, and insurance. So very consistent between the periods there, except for the first line salaries and benefits, but we'll talk about that in a minute there. So depreciation expense also very consistent between the two periods. So at the end of the year, we see a change in the revenues and expenses of 2.8 million versus 6.5. And that has to do a lot with the credit that was initiated up here in salaries and benefits from OPEB in the prior year. So how do we get you from full accrual of 2.8 positive to a change in cash and investments of 1.9 million there? So we look at capital asset additions. You expended 3.4 million in cash out, but however, depreciation was only 1.3 million. So we see a more cash out of 2.1 million there between the two periods. So if we take the positive 2.8 million with the excess in cash utilized for capital improvements of 2.1 use of cash, we had a change in the allowance for doubtful accounts there of 191,000. But the big change here is the pension liability expenditure, which is non-cash. So we're bringing that back as a credit here. So we're seeing from 1.9 to 2.0, we're about 113 off in overall accruals, which is very close overall for at the end of the reporting period there. So we do see that increase in cash of 1.9 million. In the prior year, there was this large $2 billion credit to OPEB that you received just because of the way the actuaries and the investment had progressed during that fiscal period. So very positive. The investment earnings to the portfolio, we do see that negative there, but that does have to deal with the change in the fair value investment. Actually, if we look at it from an investment earnings on a cash basis, you made 455,000, which is about 2.09% of your portfolio. Not bad for the year. But if you were in other things that were earning about 5%, you would have made about 1.09 million, which there are other investment alternatives out there. So, any questions?
You want to address the investment part? I can talk about that really quickly for the board if.
So you have to raise your.
Sorry,
voice
okay,
so that people can hear.
so Julie, do you want to, well, first of all, thanks a lot for this, and I know we're not done, but I do want to address the investment earnings to the portfolio and the return. We talked about that in the finance committee meeting. Because of this yield curve, this inverted yield curve environment that we're seeing now, where the short-term rates are higher or the returns would be higher, yields would be higher. You know, we talked about, should we look at investing more towards the short-term end of the time frame? And we're exploring some of that. This is just for the board to know, because we were looking at this same issue in the fire district board that I sit on. And but the budget is significantly bigger there. So we're talking about the size of the portfolio and whether or not an investment management firm might take this. But we're looking at different options right now, like with class. You'll see when we talk about the first look of the fiscal year operating budget, you know, what kind of investment portfolio should we be having based on the size of our portfolio? So I just don't want you to think, Paul, that this has not gone unnoticed. I understand that in this inverted yield curve environment, we might be missing out on some opportunities, but we might not even have those opportunities given the size of our portfolio.
Yes, totally understood. And there's certain things that are out there, like, the county pool as well as LAIF that are out there. And
I
as you
think we're in
mentioned,
those.
yeah, as you mentioned, you're in those. Those legacy investments that those pools have are just constrained because, for 15 years since 2008, you're only earning 1% and they were buying, $10 million blocks at 1%.
Yeah.
They have to wait for those investments to mature. Where
Yes.
you're a participant in those portfolios, there are certain things like California class. If you've looked into that, that was at the California Special Districts Association meeting in Monterey. That they're giving 5.5% for their money market for the government
Right
organization.
now, right.
Yeah, those.
No. So we are looking at that. I mean, at least trying to see, I think I've asked, and Julie's working on this, to have someone from class give us a presentation about what they can do. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
again,
it's turned around about 90% of my districts that I work with. It's really
Yeah.
changed their investment portfolio because
I
late
know,
and the county,
I know.
they're holding on to so much legacy 1%, they can't give a good
Yeah.
yield. So
Yeah, no, we're very aware of the environment and the constraints for sure. It's just a matter of, with the size of the portfolio, because if it's
Yeah.
smaller than, like, let's say an $85 million portfolio, right? The fees could eat up into the potential earnings on the returns too. I'm not saying we're going to be looking at this, Paul, so
Yeah.
just know, I just wanted the rest of the board to know that this is not an issue that has gone unnoticed by the staff and by me.
yeah, class, they just hit their first billion. They're ready. They're almost on their second billion because of the participations that are in there. And it's,
Wow. Yeah, for sure. And they're going to be coming in, right, and be doing a presentation.
On April 17th is our
Yeah,
next
right.
board meeting, yes.
Great.
Thank you.
So yeah, financial statements, clean opinion, looks good, very consistent between the two periods there. I mean, the biggest fluctuations, of course, OPEB and pension, and we've been rocked by that because of their investment portfolios at CalPERS and the OPEB. So we're hopefully now with investments, with our larger yield, we'll see a better, not so much of a fluctuation volatility in the salaries and benefits category going forward. So.
I think we're also going to have, just so the board knows, I think Julie's in touch with someone, I gave you the name, I don't know if it's that person or someone else who can give us an overview. I guess I think that it's good for the public and for our board to kind of really be educated on the pension liabilities, what that means, why it is the way it is, and then look at potential options on, what we can do, whether it's, do we stay in this or stay in our situation where we've paid down, I think 50% in 2017, but it keeps coming back, right? Or, do we look at it, what is it, a 115 trust, something, anything, I mean, I don't know, but that's also coming back to the board in a presentation form that Julie and I are working on, mainly Julie. I've just given her some suggestions.
Great. So yeah, that's pretty much my presentation. If there's any questions I can, address further, I would appreciate, I'm here to entertain those.
Any other questions for our auditor? All right, thank you. Good presentation. Keep us on track and show us how to build up those funds a little bit more.
Great.
Right.
I appreciate your pointing out these things that have caught our attention in the finance committee that we're already proactively working on. So thanks.
That's part of our mantra. How do we make you better? That's part of what are you receiving as your return on the investment for the price that we pay for your audit, and best practices we see and share that we believe that's our best way to communicate those items. So, yeah.
But who knows how long of an environment we're going to have like this too. So, right. Thank you.
Right. Moving on to item 3, first look the fiscal year.
So we have to approve. I will,
Oh, is there a receive and file? Yeah.
well, it's approved. It's
It should be
Yeah,
a receive and file. Yeah.
Just
I thought it was an approved the draft fiscal year 2022-23 audited financial
It's a
statement.
resolution.
So it is an approved, so I'll make that motion to approve this draft fiscal year 2020. I guess it wouldn't even be a draft, right? Would it be a final if we approve it?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're approving, you're
Okay.
approving the
So I'm
draft, and
gonna-
then today I send you the final once it's approved.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the audited financial statements and independent auditors report by Nigro and Nigro.
Page 2.
Second.
We've got a first and a second. Can we get a roll call on that?
Mr. Slater Carter,
I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Domrat,
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Jane Carralli.
Aye.
It passes, so we'll look forward to the final.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Now let's go on to item 3. That's what, the third time? Let's try it. Three
Second
times the
time,
charm.
second time.
First, look at the fiscal year 2024-25 operating budget and capital improvement program. Ms. Van Hoff.
Thank you, President Mathush. Commissioner Jane Corrali, did you want to?
I'll just say that y'all did an amazing job, Michelle and Julie and everyone on the team. The formatting looks great, but I think the numbers look great. There were only some minor changes that we added just to make sure that the time element, like delays, like the last staff report from last month's meeting about the permitting process and the time that it takes has kind of been added to the little blurbs on like the dredging page or, any of the capital improvement plans that we're involved with that require more time that if actually, might affect our money expenses kind of thing. And, but otherwise, I think it looks great. I think if you're a visual person, it looks great. If you want to read every detail, it looks great. So I just want to say kudos and thank you to the entire team for making this such a great product. And this is just the first read of this.
So Rochelle's been working really hard on getting all of our information into the new ClearGov product that we're using. We did use a combination of Excel and Word files, and now it's becoming more automated. So I'm going to hand it over to Rochelle just to give a brief presentation of what people will see on their end on our online website portal once this is published. The first publication will be for our preliminary budget. Once that's adopted at our April 17th, I believe it's April 17th meeting.
And let me just say that what Rochelle is gonna show us I can't really get that on my phone, and that's okay, but I just wanted to acknowledge and recognize that what you see on your phone is not gonna necessarily be the same thing that you're gonna see on a laptop or on a computer.
There may not be a good mobile conversion.
That's okay. I mean, the point, I looked through all of this because I was traveling, but I'm just saying that it's great what y'all have done from the web, the digital budget book.
Well, good morning, President Mathush and commissioners. It's great to be here to present this product to you. And I think really the interface to the public is much more usable than the PDF version. So I'm not going to go through all of it. There are 7 major categories here across the top. And I'm going to show you some of the highlights that I really like here in this. Let me go back over here to the introduction. Let's see.
Julie?
Over here to the strategic plan tab. And just some of the bells and whistles that are pulled in using ClearGov and making that public user interface easier to read and to jump around to different sections that you might want to see. So this is just, again, a lot of these are in draft form, looking at,
The whole thing is kind of still in draft form. This is the first look, so
yes,
we've got a couple of other looks coming down the road, right?
for sure. One of the other pieces is the demographic page, I think is very pleasing visually. I'm just kind of showing you those highlights. I think if we jump over to departments, we can look at, our 3 specific departments or the district as a whole under all departments. I'll give you a quick look at Pillar Point Harbor. Reviewing, our goals and objectives, how we did for the year, what we want to look out into 24, 25. And then a really nice breakdown of summary of looking at with a chart of expenses. And this is a table most of you are familiar with when we would produce an Excel version, but this is the department level of all those expenditures from our current fiscal year, our projected expenditures for our current fiscal year, and then into our draft budget for 2025. I'm going to jump over to our capital improvement program. And so we have a 1-year and a multi-year panel that you can look at. I'm going to highlight the 1 year, and I'll show you what Virginia was speaking about as far as some of the detail that we can include here. This is the Surfers Beach Restoration Project. And I haven't had John review this yet because I tried to paraphrase Brad's report from last month regarding the different phases and some of those timeline issues that kind of have impacted and slowed the district regarding permitting and getting that project pushed forward. And again, just really listening to Virginia and how important it is to share that information on here. But I was also able to link the report that we saw at our last board meeting that really had all of those details.
Yeah.
So I summarized it, but then also we can attach it here, which I think is also a very nice feature. Any questions about this online platform? I think in the future, you'll receive a link to look at our budget product versus a PDF. But if we ever needed that paper version, there's this little print button in the corner where we'll export into a PDF.
I have to say, I am so impressed with the thoroughness of this. I love the 1943 aerial view of Pillar Point Harbor that
Yeah.
shows the beaches and pre-breakwater. And you can see very clearly what the tide pattern is and how it has been shifted by the breakwater to cause the erosion of the Surfers Beach. And there's just so much good detail on this.
Yes. And the pictures look good too.
Pictures
I mean,
are wonderful.
and I say that in all sincerity because it breaks up the monotony of the text.
Well, it emphasizes the text, and I also like the graphics.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the more user-friendly documents that I've seen from a budget. I wish the county did this.
Let's tell them to take a lesson.
And so I'm gonna just talk about the numbers briefly. It's not as exciting as looking at pretty pictures.
That's why we appreciate the graphics and the pictures, Rochelle. Although I'm more of I'm gonna read all the numbers. I'm more of that.
Don't give me the graphs, give me the actual.
Right, so this is the first look. Again, all of this is preliminary, not preliminary, first draft. Next month's going to be preliminary. This is comparing what we're projecting for the 23-24 fiscal year versus the 24-25 draft budget. Basically, operating revenues are budgeted to increase by 5.9% due to projected inflationary increases of 3.7% and an increase in lease revenue associated with the Pillow Point Harbor Retail Center. Non-operating revenues are budgeted to increase by 3.9% due to a projected increase in property tax of 7.7%, which is partially offset by lower estimated interest expense due to the projected decrease in cash balances. The purchase of the land took a good portion of our cash. And in addition to that, we're projecting that we'll spend $10.4 million next fiscal year on capital projects. Salaries, benefits, expenditures are projected to increase by 3.6% due to estimated salary, wage, and benefit cost increase, along with anticipation of being fully staffed. There is currently only one vacancy in the district, and we haven't had any people leaving the district recently. Non-personnel expenditures are budgeted to increase by 20.1%. This is a big increase. There's anticipated increases in the PG&E rates, the utilities, which are expected to increase by 17% this year. And then Surfers Beach monitoring costs, eelgrass monitoring, and consulting services for a potential ballot measure related to search and rescue funding. The 24-25 draft budget includes $900,000 in biennial election costs. Capital expenditures and capital contributions are expected to be the projects that are expected to be completed this fiscal year, or that the board has already committed the funding with the encumbrance of the funds, include the Pillar Point Harbor public restroom at Surfers Beach, the Pillar Point Harbor parking lot improvements, design and engineering for Pillar Point Harbor Johnson Pier and dock reconfiguration, the design and engineering for the Surfers Beach restoration and dredge project, design and engineering for Oyster Point Marina East Dock replacement, ADA restroom and roof replacement at Pillar Point Harbor, and design and engineering for Pillar Point Harbor Retail Center replacement. That's a lot of work, John and Jim, thank you. The amounts expected to be funded in 24-25 include the Johnson Pier and dock electrical upgrades and beam pile replacement, design and engineering for the Pillar Point Harbor launch ramp, restroom, and boat rinse, construction for Surfers Beach restoration and dredge project, and Oyster Point Marina access ramps for docks 1 through 6 and 11. Going down, one of the comments that we received from the GFOA when we applied for the budget award was that they would like to see kind of a separate section for our long-term planning, and to have some more goals and objectives associated with that long-term planning. So we're hoping between now and our final budget time that we work on making this more detail oriented. But for a preliminary look at this, we have operating revenues increasing at 2.5% annually. Non-operating revenues will decrease at 1%, and we kept that 1% decrease in the budget due to the number of appeals that we project to be coming through the assessor's office. There's, like we've said in the past, the reasoning for this is the commercial buildings, a lot of them are vacant. It might be different for San Mateo County. We are trying to reach out to the assessors department and get more detailed information from them at this point. So hopefully we'll have an answer regarding how much of an impact that will be by the next look at this budget, which will be in April.
Can I make just one quick comment in here?
Sure.
So I appreciate that cushion. I just want everyone to know that that is something we talked about. You said, Julie, that there's like a lot of assessment appeals, right? That are, so I just want to give y'all a scenario that happened probably 10 or probably 10, probably 6,
Anyway.
7 year, 8 years ago, that there were downward assessments in the county that at least impacted my fire district, where we actually had to pay back some of the funds because, like, for example, Genentech, I think was reassessed downward. So that's why having this cushion, and I don't even know if it's gonna be enough, but I think right now this is where we are, that's a good thing to have, but just know that the assessment appeals, if it's high, I mean, there's a macroeconomic picture here that, we can't really talk about just because we don't really fully know. But just know that if those assessments appeals are granted, it could affect that. And so, Julie, do you think 1% will be enough? It could, I think it will.
So, yeah, I mean, the offset is properties sell at higher value than
Right.
what maybe some of the people that could have
It's
lived in their house
construction.
20 years or
It's
or more.
construction too.
Yeah, there is right now, there's a very low rate of sales because
Inventory's low.
inventory, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I had a friend who some years ago had her house reassessed downward.
Right, that's what we're
And there was
thinking.
some ultra fine print in it that said when the emergency or the economic conditions change, she would be reassessed at market rate.
Yeah.
And so, what's as typical, what sounded like a deal that was too good to be true was.
Right.
Anticipate salary and benefits will increase 5% annually. Non-personnel expenditures will increase 2.5% annually, which that 2.5% is the average over time of what inflationary rates are. There's biennial election costs, 900,000 in fiscal year 24-25 and 28-29. And then 600,000 because there will only be 2 elections that year, and there could be salary savings if commissioners run unopposed. So given that, we have total ending working capital here. This is our expected low point at the end of fiscal year, June 30th, 2025 of $5.2 million. And out of that, we have a reserve requirement of 3.3 million. So that gives us very little cushion of ability to spend over what we're budgeting. And so we just have to be aware of that. And then as the years go by, this annual increase in working capital, we start increasing our balances by 3.3 in fiscal year 25-26, 2 million in the next 2 fiscal years, and then only 752,000 in 28-29. Those are all projections. Again, we don't know what the economy or the markets are going to do and what the impact of that will be. But so that concludes my number presentation. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Number, thank you. Not the numbers, but if you go back onto page 24 and we're looking at the notes, this is on the page that's operating a budget at a glance in the 23-24 to 24-25 draft budget. in the footnotes, and I think it's the fourth bullet point, where we talk about anticipated increase of PG&E rates of 17%. Can we a little more color into this in terms of like, that basically we're not going to get enhanced services, even though our rates are going to go up, right? Number one. Number two, the rates are going up because, in my opinion, of their deferred maintenance problems. And so I just don't want people to think that as costs go up, that we're causing this, when in fact, we're not, right? And that the expectation would be that oh, rates are going up, so we will get enhanced services, which we are not, because PG&E will be basically taking care of the maintenance issues for their infrastructure that they haven't been taking care of. And that is completely out of the control of the Harbor District or any public agency right now, except for.
Or any
PG&E.
household.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is a deferred maintenance problem that they are now having to deal with, and we are, as ratepayers, are now paying for that, lack of work that happened over a significant period of time. And with rates going up and no enhanced services, I just think that needs to be in here. Because I don't want the Harbor District to be seen as, well, they're just increasing rates, when it's really not us, they're doing it. Because those costs are going to be passed down to the people who use the harbor or shop or eat or whatever.
That's a good point. Yes.
Well, and in
Thank
reading
you.
my PG&E bill, there are two segments now. They are actually buying the power from other
Yeah. States,
corporations, and they're simply the delivery service.
right.
So, and to a large extent, they've lost control of the cost of the electricity.
Right. So we're basically, for electricity costs, we're going to be at the whim of another entity
In another country,
or another state.
no, Canada, they're buying it from.
Yeah, I know, but they might. You never know, right? It can
You
be from
never,
any-
it switches.
So anyway, I would feel more comfortable if we added that into this little note after anticipated PG&E rate increase of 17%. I would say without enhanced services because of their deferred maintenance work or something like that. Are y'all okay with that?
I think it's a good plan. I think it's just like listing out our permit processes to get things done. So much that's out of our control.
Thank you.
Hey, any more?
I think this is gorgeous. I can hardly wait to see the finished version.
So we don't need a motion for this, do we?
No.
It's just because we're not approving the final budget, so not now. Okay.
Okay, very good. Item 4. Pillar Point Retail Center Ad Hoc Committee Report. General Manager Pruitt.
We had the first meeting of the Pillar Point Retail Ad Hoc Committee on March 7th. Commissioner Slater Carter was selected as the chair with Commissioner Tom Matoush as a member of the committee. The first thing we did in the committee was discuss why does the committee exist, such as a mission statement. We went through several different statements and discussion points, but at the end of the day, it comes down to a real simple mission statement: is to take the proposed Pillar Point Retail Center from design to reality. The permitting of the building is moving along on schedule. The design is moving along on schedule. So this committee's not necessarily focused on either one of those. It's to how do we move it from that design to reality. They also discussed why should the district invest money into a new retail center since we have an existing retail center. Number one thing was to generate additional revenue and income for the Harbor District, since the new retail center will be more than twice the footprint and square footage. to serve as an economic engine and hub on the coast side, or to increase its effect of that economic hub, to improve visitor services and experiences at the harbor, to improve accessibility to the waterfront establishment and facilities, to improve safety of the retail center, plumbing, electrical, and other infrastructure within the building, and then to improve the environmental impact of the retail center, improving the air conditioning and heating and retention, electrical use. So that was the first meeting of the retail center. The next meeting is scheduled, where is the next meeting?
May 23rd.
Oh, there we go, next page. I was flipped the page instead of turning the page. So May 23rd at 1 PM, and then August and November meetings have already been scheduled. If more meetings are required, we'll schedule those meetings, but that's meeting the requirements of our policy within the district to meet 4 times a year. Pending any questions, that's the report on the initial meeting of the ad hoc committee.
Questions about the meeting recap? Thank you. Moving on to item 5.
In question, so Jim, so we just talked about adding a future agenda item on what the cost is for the lack of permitting, the efficient permitting. Are we gonna have to deal with that here? I mean, I know that we're gonna have to deal with permits, but it won't probably be as onerous. But we should include this type of thing if we put this on the future agenda item about.
Permitting for this project is, we have 4 years to work on the permitting, so
We've had,
we don't think it'll impact this project with timelines because of the 4-year period.
something like that should be included in the discussion for that future agenda
Okay.
item.
I can do that.
Moving on to item 5, Oyster Point Marina Standing Committee Report. General Manager Pruitt.
Good afternoon, once again, the Oyster Point Marina Standing Committee report, or
Ad hoc.
ad hoc
Ad hoc.
standing
Oh,
committee.
no, standing, yeah. Sorry.
For San Mateo County Harbor District met. As we know, there's a joint liaison meeting between the city of South San Francisco and the Harbor District. And in that, and there's an agreement, and the agreement says that the city and the Harbor District will have its own standing committee. That will meet at least once a year. So this is the San Mateo County Harbor District Standing Committee as opposed to the full liaison meeting with South San Francisco. They met on March 8th. Commissioner Bill Zemke was designated as chair, with the other member being Commissioner Chen Corrali. It was also noted that the 2018 agreement between the South San Francisco and the Harbor District requires this standing committee as the first thing we discussed. The next thing was to discuss why the committee existed, or a mission statement for this year. And it came up to ensure a clean, safe, and environmentally friendly marina for public use and enjoyment that is welcoming, accessible, and financially sustainable. The goals of the committee for this year were also discussed. And with the overarching theme of, while maintaining a positive and collaborative relationship with the city of South San Francisco, excuse me, review the 2018 agreement for opportunities to improve and increase collaboration and management of Oyster Point Marina, define the roles and responsibilities, discuss the 40,000 square foot commercial building, dock replacement timelines, joint maintenance responsibilities, establish a plan to install a fuel dock at Oyster Point Marina. It wasn't a question for the committee if a fuel dock will be there, but when it will be there.
And how it'll be.
And how. Implement plan to address the flooding at the entrances of docks 1 through 6 and 11. Identify funding source for dock replacements for docks 1 through 6, 12 through 14. Get an updated plan from South San Francisco as to what the plan is for the spit. And then also ensure the boat ramp is usable in all tide conditions, because as all know, the dock turns into a submarine at high tide and is unusable. Further, find short-term fixes to prevent passengers from accessing Dock 8, that they do not walk through the water at king tides, because right now the entire spit and the landing for that dock is underwater during those king tides, and that's the ferry landing. And then define rules and responsibility with protecting the pump house from flooding during foul weather, including the adjacent electrical panels and switches. The next meeting for the subcommittee is set for May 24th at 1 o'clock. And we're going to be pushing for or ask South San Francisco to coordinate our annual meeting sometime following the May 24th meeting. And that's my report, pending any questions.
I'll make a comment.
Go ahead.
I think that we're off to a good start in terms of the things, the issues and things that we're concerned about. So, I mean, there were a lot. And so these were the things that we felt should be prioritized. And the mission statement is basically that of the harbor districts, which we felt was completely appropriate for Oyster Point Marina.
Okay. If there are no more comments, then we'll move on to item G6, Search and Rescue Ad Hoc Committee Report. General Manager Pruitt.
Good afternoon again. The Search and Rescue Ad Hoc Committee met on March 7th for its initial meeting. Commissioner Corrali was designated as a chair and Commissioner Matoush as a member. The mission statement for the committee was defined as to ensure the district is properly staffed, trained, and equipped to provide world-class maritime search and rescue capabilities to include maritime assists within the state waters off San Mateo County coast from Pedro Point to north of Pigeon Point to the south. The second item discusses why the district is concerned with maritime outside the harbor itself or the marina. And as discussed and previously, by the Harbor Board of Commissioners, the district's been performing search and rescue for decades and at exorbitant cost, both to personnel and to the district with overtime. Our budget does not allow for that, so we've had to cut back, and we no longer have the personnel, or we don't staff the personnel to provide the search and rescue service on a 24-hour basis, and we're struggling now to maintain it on a daylight only basis based on the limited staff and funding that we get provided. The committee asked staff to return to the subcommittee with potential actions to take with respect to education and awareness of and training of staff, public communication plan, and engagement plan for public officials for funding. And then also to look at grant and other funding opportunities.
I would add that for engagement plan for public officials, I'm not sure if it's public officials or if it's like other agencies, because the officials will come and go, the agencies won't necessarily. Do you see what I'm saying? For funding purposes, not as in you're going to be there and do the assists or the rescues.
I will update the notes.
Thanks.
Next meeting will be May 23rd. And then the committee stressed that this is a significant issue, an issue that places people at additional risk if we do not do it correctly. And that Commissioner Matoush and Commissioner Corrali are dedicated to ensuring the Harbor District maintains well-trained staff equipped for search and rescue at Pillar Point Harbor.
I add, go ahead. Joel. I was just gonna add something to the mission statement or maybe change it or something so that you have to ensure that the district is properly staffed, trained and equipped to provide, but should it be so that it may provide?
I think may is a better word than to. If
I mean,
somebody.
we would like to provide, but it's not gonna be a mandatory, I mean,
May is the optional, shall is mandatory, so.
right, that's why I would rather have may right there. 'Cause it may.
It's not mandatory that we provide the service.
Right, I know that, that's why I'm saying may should be there. I mean, that's just my opinion.
I agree entirely. I think if people read it the way it's written, they will take it as mandatory.
Thanks, Catherine.
Sure. Don't brat.
Just a quick question on how the decision was made for the boundaries. So we talk about state waters off San Mateo. I'm assuming that's San Mateo County coast. From Pedro Point north to Pigeon Point. The county's boundary is just a little bit north of that. That's probably right around Muscle Rock. Are we assuming that we will not have to cover the area around Pacifica, the Pacifica Pier? That somebody else covers that area?
We didn't really discuss this.
My
the
guess would be
boundaries.
more like Station Golden Gate of the.
Was covered, that's what I'm saying. Do we think they would
It's-
cover that part? We don't need to.
They could get down as fast as we could get
It's
out.
not
Okay, then-
faster.
I think it's important, though, to add that, I don't know if you guys remember, I'm sure Tom does, but we had a big problem, 20, 30 years ago, where somebody died on Devil's Slide.
Yeah.
And there was a big fight over which ER group was going to come and clean this up, and both of them were going, not us, not us. And so it was just a disaster, and it's important to have that clarified.
I think that's important in this document. We would say that auxiliary or whoever handles that portion north of Pedro Point. So that but people don't anticipate that Pillar Point Harbor will be doing anything off the Pacifica Pier.
We have responded off Pacifica.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
And we recently responded to the father and son who got stuck in the cove.
Right.
Unfortunately, they didn't, the son wasn't able to survive that, but we're not setting the expectation that if called, we will regularly do that. It's when we're fully staffed and trained to be able to do that, and that's not a very often. So depending on what's going on in the harbor, depending on the weather, is if we can go over to Pacifica or not.
Okay.
Well, I had the same question down south,
Well,
because you have Pigeon
the other-
Point, right, which I know is, you have more tourists there, but we go down to the Santa Cruz County line, essentially, which is
If we have
south
resources
of Pigeon Point.
Nuevo
And
Island.
depending on the rescue situation, we may have time to go down there to do past Pigeon Point to be effective. But trying to set up expectations, we know our normal area that we're able to respond to is Pigeon Point to Pedro Point.
Okay,
Doesn't mean we're restricted to that. We may go further.
okay.
Yes.
Right, right.
And we can go up beyond state lines too, depending on the weather and
Okay.
the sea state, but expectation wise is
Right.
we'll go out to the state lines.
The definition of state waters is out to 3 miles.
3 miles. Yeah, no, I was more worried about the lateral boundary.
South.
Yeah, south boundary.
Because if somebody gets stuck in a wave in Pacifica, by the time we get there, they'll either be rescued or not,
Right, that's,
depending on, but if it's a boat adrift and in danger of going aground, we may be able to
So
get out there in
situational,
time.
really.
And so it's really dependent on weather, the rescue, what's going on at the harbor. And every time we launch from Pillar Point Harbor, we do a risk assessment that takes all that into consideration.
I think that concludes that report, which means it's time to have a little recess on our meeting here and go into closed session. So with that, we'll close the meeting.
Recording stopped.
Now we go right into the cookie jar or the candy jar.
Go ahead.
Is that is that training letter in your motion? Because that's
Yes.
what, okay, I wanted to just confirm. Because I see that here.
The motion is to approve the MOU and authorize me to
Okay.
sign the training side letter.
I'll move for that, those two things to happen, to sign the MOU and to sign the training side letter.
Is there a second?
Okay.
Second.
Everybody second at once.
Who's the
We
second?
have a motion and a second,
Any public?
public here, and we have a way of handling that now. So may we have a roll call, please?
President Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Chang Carley,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Domrat.
Yes.
Okay, item passes. I too, publicly available salary schedule and special compensation. Ms. Van Hoff, please.
Thank you, President Mathush. This item is in support of the MOU that you just passed. And the attachment is the new salary schedule, which would, upon approval, become effective on March 24th, which is the next beginning of the pay period. The salary schedule includes a proposal to increase the manager's salary ranges to prevent compaction. Approval of this item will ensure compliance with California Code of Regulations, and the approved salary schedule will be posted on the district's website. If you have any questions regarding the salary schedule, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
No, but I'll move to amend the salary schedule to include OE3's increased salary.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Chang Carley,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Domrat,
Aye.
President Mathush.
Aye.
Excuse me, just for clarification, the OE3 increase in the salaries, does that include managers' increase in the salaries also?
I thought you said it is included to prevent.
Yeah, the motion,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Item J, future agenda items, fellow commissioners.
Virginia asked for one.
Yes, and I'm writing this down. So I was thinking it's based on our previous discussions on various items regarding the permitting delays, what those opportunity costs are for the Harbor District. And so I'd like to have that on a future agenda to understand what the opportunity costs are from agencies, permitting agencies like the county.
Possibly as part of that, maybe a little bit of background information on whether the county permitting agencies have it stipulated in their process that if there's not an approval in a certain period of time, it gets approved, or is there anything built in their processes?
Process, right?
What?
Yeah, what is their
Yeah, what is
process?
the process? And
Because there are opportunity costs to the district. And to anyone, and to our tenants and to our visitors.
Are there any other future agenda topics? I believe Commissioner Domrat, we had one. Potential activities. committee.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We, potential activities committee to look at, future activities that the harbor would sponsor that we can make some money on. As an example, maybe we do, once a year, the Pillar Point Jazz Festival, where we can bring in groups of music and have a celebratory thing, probably in the fall time.
Or like Redwood City's.
Oh, we do the
Fest.
fisherman's thing
Yeah,
now. and
so maybe we.
Do a surfers
propose
thing
in the
now.
Next meeting, maybe an ad hoc committee that can look at certain activities that would help benefit the harbor. So,
I think that's appropriate as people are looking for entertainment closer and closer to home. And now that we've got that land, we might be able to even accommodate parking.
Well, and maybe not just even here, but also at Oyster Point. If there's that plot of land, can we use that? I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there because
Are there
the
bathrooms?
Oyster Point area is beautiful. And
Yes,
it's
it is.
getting warm.
That's an excellent idea.
All you have to do
Keep
is,
forgetting about that.
So you want to be on the ad hoc committee, George?
I guess so.
I'll be on it with George.
All right.
Or
uh,
Catherine can.
you just need maps to get people to that harbor. It's
That's
impossible.
true. It's a little
Yeah.
interesting to
Is
get.
there a motion to adjourn?
President Matoush, we need to get a vote on future agenda items.
Okay.
Those two, I'll move for those future agenda items to be placed on the future
second.
agenda.
Roll call.
Commissioner Slater Carter. Commissioner Domrat.
Yes.
President Matoush.
Aye.
Commissioner Jane Crowley.
Aye.
Now, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Catherine.
Roll call.
President Matoush.
Aye.
Commissioner Jane Crowley.
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter.
Yes.
Commissioner Domrat.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
11:57.
All right, now is everybody, we're ready.